I think there are good and bad ways to use positivity and kindness in fitness, and here's why. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Hampton and I make fitness content. We have a few million followers across social media and a lot of people who have signed up. Anytime I have a video go viral, there's usually some comment saying that I'm nice and I'm kind, and I'm just stating this because I don't know if I've mentioned this on the main channel, but my reaction when I see those comments, and I appreciate them, but the reaction is, I am? Because I don't really make an effort to be extra nice or extra kind. And really, it was when I had a few videos go viral, that was when I first heard this at scale. Now, I do try to be straightforward. I just talk about fitness. I don't really think I'm gonna try to be a nice person. I just wanna talk about fitness, and usually when I'm filming, I'm in a good mood. So that might be some of the kindness and positivity that people talk about. I just speak to the camera as if I were speaking to people at my job. So it's just, in a way, kind of professional, but also unprofessionally professional or professionally unprofessional. One of those. And while I appreciate all the lovely comments, I never really intended specifically to come across as nice. In fact, it kind of feels like a failed business idea where it's like, hey, I won't be the strongest person, I won't be the best looking, and I won't be the most muscular, but people will listen to the content because they think I'm nice. Like if I heard that as a business pitch, I'd be like, yeah, you can probably think of a better one, come back next week. But it's from that perspective that I want to talk about positivity in the fitness industry, because I do think that a lot of people realize that different people are motivated by different things and different mindsets and different styles of motivation. Some people want to be yelled at and others may not. And for me, I did fall into that latter camp from other people. In gym class, there was kind of, like, if you think of the stereotypical gym teacher, when you're doing push-ups, I'm trying to do the push-ups. And when the gym teacher was yelling at me, I always had this thought that, well, I'm already doing as many as I can, right? It didn't hurt my feelings. It didn't make me do less as a result, but he's kind of just making his throat hoarse for no reason by yelling at me because I'm doing as many as I can. I'm already working at what I consider to be 100% capacity. Yelling is just a waste of time and space and energy. And I kind of have that perspective when I'm talking to other people about fitness, whether online where I can't really quite see the person I'm talking to, or in person. Now, we can be honest, so that's some pushback against the positivity, is that sometimes it leads us not to be honest. We can still be honest and say, this is probably what I would recommend, but you can do that while still being professional, still being kind, and still being positive in a way. However, it may interest some people that the way I talk to myself in my own mind, not just about fitness, but about my life in general, is a little bit more like the former, where it's a little bit more rough. When I fail at something, I'm like, man, I know you could have done better. I know this raises some flags for some people, but the way I talk to myself and what seems to work for me at my best is I am honest with myself, and that is not always what would come across as the most kind. I say, well, I know a lot of people said that you worked your hardest here, but did you really? You know you could have gone a little bit harder. And that person that you said that you tried your best for, did you actually try your best? Or could you have done a little bit more? I know these things, it's kind of a slippery slope. Sometimes you can always stress yourself out saying you could have done better. But there are times where I might have needed a little bit of a reality check from myself. It's like, yeah, I might not have been the most honest to that person. I should go tell them how it actually was and say that I messed up. And it wasn't just because I couldn't. I could, but I didn't put in the right preparation and effort, and I'm sorry for that. Or if it's about work or fitness, I could have done a little bit more, right? I can make the excuse and convince a lot of people by saying I don't have time, but I do have time. So I'm a little bit rougher on myself. I know some people relate to that. Others may not, but some people definitely do. And just from talking to people about fitness, we see that different people might need to be motivated in different ways. So just to use two relatively extreme examples, some people need to be told, like they have so much anxiety, so much stress, and like, look, it's just okay, just do the push-ups and it'll be all right. And then you can kind of soothe them. And that's why some people consider fitness to be therapeutic, especially if they have a good personal trainer. I have some personal trainer friends who say they have clients that come to them really just to talk to them. They already know the exercises, but they just want to vent about their day. They want to vent about their spouse or their friends. I've never been a bartender, but I guess that's kind of what bartenders say their life is like too. And others, and this is where a little bit of nuance comes in, want something different. They might want more of a bold push, maybe even a negative push in their own words. They want someone to yell at them or speak sternly to them in order to motivate them. Interestingly, they don't want just anyone to yell at them. It's a specific type of person, I think, I've noticed. I'll talk about that later. But I had this friend who texted me a little while ago, and it was several years ago, and he said, hey, Hampton, I need some motivation to finish my math homework. I'm almost there, I'm like 90% done, but I just don't feel like it. Can you yell at me? And I was like, sure. And I was like, Who is a whiny little wimp who won't finish their last sets because it's too hard, boo-hoo? Is that gonna be you? Is that the whiny little wimp? And that's why I texted him. And honestly, compared to how I speak to myself or my friends just jokingly, it's not even that rough. But he was like, yes, sir, Hampton, sir. And he finished his math homework. And I'm still friends with this person. That's just how he wanted to be talked to at that moment, and it seemed to help. But he also trusted me enough to know that I can say that without actually hating him, that I say that wanting him to succeed. And this is where we can start to get into the good and bad roles of positivity, and maybe the good and bad roles of what people would consider strategic negativity. Because we talk about the downsides of both, right? Like if someone really wanted to argue against positivity or negativity, but positivity first here, they might say, well, it gives people a sense of delusion. So I'm trying to argue that side here. And they're like, well, if you're overly positive, then you're not facing reality. You're not helping other people face reality. And in fact, you might be undermining the struggles of other people. I think this is sometimes referred to as toxic positivity, right? There's different definitions for it, but it's like overly positive to the point where you're delusional or it seems fake to some people. I think that's the downside that some people see of positivity of everywhere, but definitely in fitness. And it may lead to a lack of results, right? So in our efforts to encourage people to get started, there are some people within our community sometimes where they offer advice trying to encourage people. And I love that. I love that you're trying to encourage people. I love trying to motivate people. But if you want just to motivate people to get started and get moving and start exercising, that's great. You know, if you're exercising just so you feel good, you can do these stretches, you can do this thing, right? You can do jumping jacks and just you feel good and that's your goal. That's awesome. But when people ask me for my opinion on that, on something specific, I usually tell them that I'd be doing them a disservice, saying that if you do that to be happy, that's awesome. But if you're doing it specifically for the goal of losing weight or gaining muscle or getting stronger, there are some good and bad ways to do that. And I can say, good job doing this, but this may not get you to your goal. And I'd rather be kind, but also honest in that way. And that is actually why I try to default when I'm talking to the camera or talking to an unknown crowd, because I don't know who is on the other side of the screen. That's why I tend to default to a little bit more kind, a little bit nice, a little bit more understanding, because I don't know someone's situation, and you may not know me as well as that person. We may not be like real life friends. And when we don't know someone's situation, when I don't know someone's situation, I try to be somewhat pleasant and understanding when possible. I'm surprised it shows up in the comments sometimes. And there's a philosophy that's emerged partially in reaction to this, I think, where people think, well, we do want to help people. We do want to help them meet their goals and actually improve their life, and they'll thank us later. And we don't want to encourage them to be delulu. So we need to tell them the truth, whether or not they actually want to hear it. So this can definitely work for some people, but there's a couple things I think we should consider, which is one, what you think to be the truth may not actually be the truth. So if you're gonna be tough but honest, you gotta make sure the honest part really is there, otherwise you're just being tough for no reason. And when we don't know someone well enough, I know sometimes we do, other times we may not, when we don't know them well enough and we say, well, you do have the time to do this, or you are able to lift that, or you do have the money to do this. It might be true, but it also might not be. And we just don't know if we don't know that person well enough, which is something I think we can keep in mind, because we can say things like, most people have 10, 15 minutes in a day. Most people have 30 free minutes in a day. Most people have some extra money for a gym membership if you want to encourage them to do that. But as someone who tries to be quite straightforward and realistic, especially with myself, I have learned over the years that people react in different ways, and sometimes the excuses that we think are excuses are not actually so. Not to bring everyone down, but just this is a clear example for me. Back before my mom had her last major stroke and ended up in the hospital and fully disabled, the years leading up to that, she was physically capable. She was moving around and she was working in our family restaurant. And there were many times that I remember when it wasn't really quite that late. It was 8 or 9 and she stayed up a little bit later than that, and she would complain about being tired, or she would say that she was tired. And a lot of people loved my mom, but she kind of had a reputation, especially with my dad, of being, in their words, whiny, just a little bit. Not really in an unpleasant way, but just enough to be like, I don't want to do that. I want to go home. I want to do this. So we kind of brushed it off as her just whining a little bit. But when they brought up the scan of her brain after her last major stroke, they saw a lot of tiny little white dots and they pointed at them. And those were all mini strokes. And they mentioned that this might have happened over the past several years, small little episodes where she had a little bit of a headache and just like a tired spell. This is how it was explained to me. And my mom wasn't able to speak at the time, but something that really occurred to me was a lot of the times where she was like, I'm tired, and everyone was like, it's okay, we'll go home in a little bit. Some of them might have just been complaints, but other times they might have been serious things that we didn't quite see, and we just didn't know, and I wish I had. And this leads me to the second part of using this kind of more strict reinforcement. I don't want to call it negativity, but more strict reinforcement, when we're more, I would say, some people would say brutally honest with someone, is I usually wanted, kind of like my friend who texted me and wanted that. In my opinion, if we choose to use that on some people, we should ask ourselves if that person knows us enough to trust us to think that we want the best for them. Because not everyone does, right? I think if we're going to be a little bit harsher with someone, a little bit more brutal in the effort of trying to make them better, because sometimes we do that for our friends and loved ones and our family, right? They should at least know that we're coming from a place of love, and that can be more motivating. Now, there are some people who are motivated by the haters, right? I think David Goggins said that he used to jog listening to an audio recording of his hater comments. If that worked for you, that's great. But I think from the perspective of giving the brutal feedback here, the person on the receiving end should at least know that we're doing it out of love, not just because we want to hurt them. And kind of the same thing if you're trying to be kind but honest, because different people have different thresholds. And there are some people, if you offer any kind of unsolicited advice, or sometimes even solicited advice, they'll get upset with you. But if they ask you, then you can say, well, you asked for my opinion, and that's my kind but honest opinion. And if they didn't ask, then you don't have that reason. So ultimately, as we see, different people are motivated by different things. And if our goal is to help, then we can use kindness and positivity in this way of being a motivator for people who are motivated by kindness, who need a little bit of stress relief, who need a little bit of comforting in order for them to be able to withstand more and grow to be stronger and better. And when we try to be honest, that truth that we're sharing, we want to try to make it something that actually can help them, because we don't want to encourage someone to pursue something and keep doing something if it's not going to bring them closer to their goals, if that's their actual goal. And we don't want to tell someone a brutal truth, in quotes, when it's not even the truth. But either way, when it's one-on-one, it can really help if you have an established relationship with someone, so they know that whether you choose kindness or brutality, that you want the best for them, especially if they ask you for it, if they solicit it. And having that foundation, we can use kindness and more to try to help other people. We have a free fitness routine on the website, so you can get started from almost any fitness level today if you want. A book and ebook version of that if you want a book or ebook. A fitness app in beta, cards if you want an illustrated version, and support from certified personal trainers if you need help. Thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful day, my friend.